Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 733 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, and we got a special Sunday night edition of Locked On New York Ranger here. I figure, why not? The Rangers went into Chicago, basically cruised to a 7-1 win against the Blackhawks. I mean, there were little chunks of this game where I thought the Rangers maybe could have played a little bit better, but overall, fantastic performance. Nice to see them do what you're supposed to do against one of the cellar dwellers in this league. And sevens were wild for the Rangers. Think about it. There were the Rangers obviously getting their seventh straight win here. You had 7 goals scored by the Rangers, scored by 7 different players. You had 7 Rangers with multi-point games. And just to boot, 7 straight losses for the Chicago Blackhawks. Pretty crazy to think that the Rangers now 7-0 ever since the infamous Jacob Trouba helmet throw. And in the time that has gone by since then, the Blackhawks 0-7. And obviously the Rangers, the Blackhawks won after a just embarrassing performance in Madison Square Garden, losing that game 5-2. But obviously they come back here and they get the Blackhawks back. They pay them back, beat them by a final score of 7-1. And like I said, just a strong overall performance by the New York Rangers. So we're going to break this one down. A couple of things I want to talk about today. Certainly want to start by talking about how the Rangers basically just killed it when it came to the rush. They scored their first 3 goals on rushes into the zone and had another goal, I believe, goal number 6 on the night. That was Vitaly Kravtsov. He scored on the rush as well. So the Rangers were lethal on the rush. And of course, not just the goals, there were a couple other chances they had storing into the Chicago zone in transition on the rush. A couple of opportunities that they did not convert on. You're not going to convert on all of them, but the Rangers converted on a bunch in this game, and that continues to be a strength of this team. So we're going to talk about that. Also want to talk about some of the chippiness from this game, some bad blood from the last one carrying over, and probably even from last season as well. An injury to Filip, upper body injury. We're going to talk about that as well. Fingers crossed, obviously, that Filip is okay. I don't know who's had worse luck this season, either him or Vitaly Kravtsov. Both of them have been injured a couple of times and been in and out of the lineup. I believe this is now, if Chytil ends up missing time here, this, I think, would be his 3rd different injury that has forced him out of the lineup at one time or another this season. So obviously unfortunate, because when he's been out there, Filip has been very, very good for this team. Was very good in this game here tonight. Had a goal and an assist before he left this one with the apparent upper body injury. Also just going to talk about the concept of the New York Rangers basically just being back to the New York Rangers. And I'll explain what that means in a little bit here. You probably have an idea. But yeah, let's start with talking about the Ranger prowess when it came to rushes into the attacking zone. Absolutely lethal in this game. There was a shift early in the game, still scoreless at this point, and the kid line had a really nice sequence. Lafreniere pressured the puck in the Chicago zone, just inside of the blue line there along the boards, forced the Chicago Blackhawk player into an errant pass. The pass was intercepted in the neutral zone by Kakko. Kakko led Filip back into the Chicago zone. Chytil took a shot, and it was saved. But their very next shift, the kid line converts, specifically Filip. He finished from the doorstep. And basically what happens, you got Fox pinching in. He prevents the Blackhawks from working the puck up the boards and is able to, step in, intercept the pass or whatever it was. Again, the Blackhawks were basically just moving the puck up the boards. But Fox comes in, takes control of it, gets a pass to Lafreniere. Lafreniere stops the pass with his skate, knocks it down, and then passes back the other way to Filip. Just kind of a short pass there, and Chytil scores from the doorstep, gives the Rangers a 1-0 lead. That was 13:04 into the first period. And this began a stretch where the Rangers scored 3 goals, all on rushes in less than 6 total minutes. And, a so-so start to this game was looking like, maybe it might even be scoreless at the end of the first period. And instead, the Rangers explode for 3 goals. But not too long after this, let's see, about 3 or 4 minutes after this, you have the Rangers on the rush again. Adam Fox zips in up the right side. This had goal written all over it. Adam Fox, just another casual 3-assist game for him in this one. And when he's moving, the way he was moving, up the right side here, and he's got options and he's got some space. You just have the feeling that Fox, he sees the ice so well, he's going to find somebody. He's going to find somebody who's open. He's going to get the puck to them. He's going to put it on a tee for them, and that's pretty much what he did right here. So he makes a pass over to his left to Panarin, kind of a backdoor pass to Panarin. You had Vesey and Trocheck, each of the two of them going hard to the net. And Fox, again, he passes back instead of trying to force it to one of them. And you got Panarin in the slot. He's a good bet to score from this spot on the ice. That's exactly what happens. And just like that, the Rangers up 2-0. And then you've got the Rangers winning a board battle in the defensive zone. Another big-time rush up the ice. This time, once again, the kid line. You've got Alexis Lafreniere just, like he was shot out of a cannon, going hard up the left side. He passes back and to his right to Filip. Chytil is moving toward the net, and he passes to his right over to Kakko. And Kakko, bit of a sharp angle, but he had this all the way. He shoots and he scores, makes it 3-0 in favor of the Rangers. So in the blink of an eye, the Rangers turning a scoreless tie in the first period into a 3-0 advantage, and they were well on their way to winning this game. You also had Kravtsov. We're talking about the Rangers, their prowess on the rush in this game, and I think a breakaway obviously counts. But basically, and this is late in the game. This is all just kind of the exclamation point, so to speak. The Rangers were up 5-1 at this point. You were pretty much guaranteed that they were going to go on to win this game. But you've got Lindgren to Panarin, and then Panarin with a really nice pass up the center of the ice into the neutral zone, springs Kravtsov on the breakaway, and Kravtsov goes in and scores. So the Rangers scoring 4 of their goals on the rush. A lot of young players contributing on the rush here. All just very, very good stuff for this Ranger team that has quite clearly turned a corner. At this point, I don't think anyone can deny it. They've won 7 in a row and have looked really, really good doing it. Not going to say it's been perfect. I think, if you want to nitpick here and there, there's probably certain things you could look at from both this game and the game against the Flyers that were not perfect. But you know what? They just went on the road for a back-to-back this weekend, and they won the 2 games by a combined score of 13-4. So they didn't do too bad for themselves this weekend. I think pretty much everybody would have to agree there. We're going to keep this thing rolling in just a second. Like I said, I want to have some thoughts on just the overall chippiness from this game. Got kind of nasty at times. Lafferty was in the middle of everything for the Blackhawks. I mean, he was in the middle of everything as far as, starting trouble and starting issues. He wasn't in the middle of everything as far as doing anything worthwhile, as far as, producing some offense or scoring some points or anything like that. But, for the extracurriculars, Lafferty was right in the middle of it. We're going to talk about all that in just a second. But first, just got to let everybody know, today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league. From pro football to college bowl season to basketball to hockey and World Cup, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We are always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, we just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And as I just mentioned, this is a pretty testy game. I think the fuse was kind of lit on this rivalry. I mean, I know it's an original 6 matchup, but you don't really think of Rangers Blackhawks as being like this crazy out of control rivalry. They only play a couple of times against each other every season, and there wasn't really a whole lot of nastiness between these teams. Before last season, Trouba had the big hit. I believe it was on Kyra, and he was stretchered off, and there was some bad blood there. And in the last game, the Rangers were sleepwalking. Jacob Trouba tries to wake everybody up. He's hitting people. He's getting into fights. Barclay Goodrow got into a fight in that game as well. Got kind of nasty. Of course, we got the helmet throw from Jacob Trouba. And then Anthony Ciu, after the game, he had some choice words for Jacob Trouba. And I do not have the exact quote in front of me, but I do know that he said something along the lines of, Trouba, he hasn't scored any goals. He's not very good and this, that, and the other thing, all this stuff. So I guess he feels like he has to go out there and hurt people to be effective and to help the Rangers win. First of all, I don't even know where to start with this. Let's think about this logically, though. So Jacob Trouba, in his career, I don't think he's ever scored 10 goals in a season. And, Anthony Ciu, I get the fact that he's trying to stand up for his teammates or whatever, after Trouba, had a big hit in the last game and got into a fight in the last game. But Jacob Trouba, and we can debate whether he's truly an $8 million a year defenseman or not, but whether he is or not, the reason why he's that high paid, the reason why he got that long of a contract, it's not because he scores a lot of goals. Jacob Trouba has never really been a goal scorer. Most defensemen aren't. He brings a lot of other things to the table, the leadership, the toughness, the nastiness, the physicality, the ability to obviously contribute on both special teams units. He can be on the ice in big spots in the game, toward the end of a game. Jacob Trouba, has been a really solid all-around player throughout his career. But that is kind of funny to me, though, because, Anthony Ciu himself, he's making $3 million per season. And, it's not an enormous amount, but as far as, what he's done to contribute so far this year, let's see, 28 games for Anthony Ciu. He's got 6 goals and 3 assists. As David Quinn would say, whoop-de-doo. It's not like Anthony Ciu is over there, setting all kinds of franchise records and looking like one of the true stars of this game. I was going to say true young stars. He's 28 years old. He's had a fine career for himself, but let's not act like this guy sets the world on fire every single night. But that part of this whole thing aside, there was a lot. There was a lot as far as, some of the things that Lafreniere was pulling during this game. You had a situation where the kid line had a great chance. They had a chance to score their 3rd goal of the game, and it was only the 2nd period when this was happening. Kakko had a great opportunity from the doorstep, could not quite finish. But then you notice that Filip is down on all fours. He was hit really late on this play by Lafreniere, and he was eventually ruled out with an upper body injury, and fingers crossed that he's okay. The Rangers, you don't want to lose anybody, and you don't want to lose Filip, who right now is probably on pace to have the best season of his career by a pretty safe margin. So, again, hopefully he's all right. The Rangers, they were kind of back on their heels for the first few minutes of the 2nd period. You had Brodzinski getting shaken up. He was laid out by Lafreniere as well. Lindgren got Lafreniere back. He put a big hit on Lafreniere, knocked him down to the ice. So at least Lindgren retaliated. But besides that, there wasn't really a lot of retaliating by the Rangers. And Lafreniere was not done. You had a situation a little bit later in this game where Igor Shesterkin had the puck behind the Ranger net, and he was kind of off to the side a little bit. And Lafreniere skates up and just checks him down to the ice from behind. No penalty called or anything like that, and no retaliation from the Rangers. And I know a lot of people are going to say, man, I wish we still had Ryan Reeves, and I get it. I miss Revo too, but Reeves isn't here anymore. Facts are facts. He's just not, and again, he was a solid Ranger while he was here. But somebody on the Rangers has to, at some point, I think, have some kind of a response to this. I'm not saying you have to sucker punch him in the face or, cross-check him in the throat. Nothing like that, but at least go after him during a play stoppage or something like that. Because Lafreniere, like I said, he was kind of in the middle of everything as far as the extracurriculars were concerned. He's already taken out Filip on a questionable hit there, a late hit, and now he's knocked your goalie to the ice and taken the chance of possibly injuring him. So I do wish the Rangers would have had a little bit more of a response, even just kind of like a verbal response after a play. Do something. Give me something. Give me some kind of a retaliation here after this guy has basically just been pulling a bunch of nonsense the entire game. But as far as testiness is concerned, we got to actually backtrack just a little bit here. Nobody who saw this game is going to forget this anytime soon, I don't think, because it was pretty funny. Jacob Trouba scores a goal while the Rangers are on the power play. That gives them a 4-1 lead in the 2nd period. And, nice play. Panarin to Mika. Mika drops the puck for Trouba. Trouba shoots it and scores. But what caught everybody's attention was what happened after the play, because Anthony Ciu, as we just documented, was the guy who had some choice words for Jacob Trouba after the Blackhawks win against the Rangers in Madison Square Garden. And as fate would have it, Trouba scored, and Anthony Ciu was on the ice when it happened. And so Trouba looks at him and he says, hey, you want the puck? So that was great. You had McCabe then. He retaliated against Trouba. during the play stoppage here. They kind of met around the red line, and McCabe shoved Trouba. But that was great by Trouba there. I mean, just sweet revenge, so to speak. And, Panarin was there, and, he was laughing quite a bit because, of course, he was. But, yeah, great stuff from Trouba, just kind of answering back, chirping back at somebody who, again, had some choice words for you after the last game. And, just part of a really strong overall night for the New York Rangers. I figure we'll keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to talk about this concept of the Rangers potentially just being back to being the New York Rangers, because for a while, we all knew what Ranger hockey was, and then for a while, Ranger hockey became just sloppy play and bad turnovers and just not being clutch and a whole bunch of other bad things too. But they have turned the corner, and at this point, they look very much like the team that we saw last year, that we saw exceed expectations, go on that awesome playoff run. So we're going to talk about that concept in just a second. Also want to talk about the Ranger rebuild versus the Blackhawks rebuild, because there's a couple of differences there, and I want to get to that as well. But we'll do all that stuff in just a second. All right, so are the Rangers back to being the Rangers? I would have to say yes. For a while there, things got so bad that I came on here, and I know a couple of you guys agreed with me through some YouTube comments and a couple of emails that you guys sent me as well. I came on here and suggested, because the Rangers had played so bad for so long, and it wasn't like it was bad luck or, another team was just firing on all cylinders and that's why they lost. In most cases, the Rangers were losing because they would have these mental lapses, these lulls. They would take bad penalties. They were terrible in the third period. They didn't know how to play when they had a lead. Igor Shesterkin was not in God mode, which apparently now he is back in God mode. He had a very strong game in this one too. A little bit under the radar when you're winning 7-1, but Igor was very, very good in this game. But bottom line, when the Rangers were going through that stretch, it was just atrocious. Nobody was skating hard, and I looked at it, and after a while, the evidence had piled up, and the Rangers had lost to so many bad teams in just awful fashion. And I said, you know what? This is who they are now. This is who the Rangers are now until they prove otherwise. And of course, they have a lackluster game against the Blues through 2 periods. They're down by 1 going into the third. They rally. They win that game. And I'm happy. It was the best period that the Rangers had played in weeks and weeks. And I know you guys were excited as well, seeing them win that game. But I came on here and I said, it's great. It's great that they rallied and won this game. But for me to really believe that they're back, I'm going to have to see a lot of evidence that suggests that this was not a fluke and just a random good period that can happen at any point in a season. Well, 6 wins later for a total of 7 straight wins. Yeah, I think the proof is in the pudding at this point that the Rangers are back to being the Rangers. Just skating hard every single night, dominating the third period, getting some secondary scoring, Igor being Igor, good special teams play, some good physicality on most nights as well. Take your pick, man. The Rangers, they're beating good teams. They're beating bad teams. They're winning on the road. They're winning at home. And got a real opportunity here with 7 straight wins. Only 2 more games before the holiday break here. So going to be very interested to see how the Rangers fare down the stretch here of, the rest of 2022 here before you get the holiday break, and then a couple more games before the year ends. But man, what a 180. This has been an absolute blast to watch, seeing the Rangers turn this around. And I think, yes, the Rangers are back to being the Rangers. I also want to talk a little bit about the lineup. There's not too much to say about this one, which is kind of why I waited so long to mention it, because there weren't any changes. The Rangers went with the same 20 players that they went with in the last game. The only difference, of course, was that Igor Shesterkin predictably was back between the pipes for the Rangers and played very, very well. Besides that, though, Julien Gauthier, a healthy scratch for the second consecutive game, which I think is okay. He had kind of slowed down a little bit. The fourth line has played well, and Gauthier's been a part of that. But somebody has to be the odd man out. I don't think you want it to be Kravtsov right now. You wanted to get him back out there at some point. Sammy Blais was probably never going to be on the bench for too long. And Brodzinski has played, okay, since he's been called up from the Hartford Wolfpack. And on top of that, you need him to center the fourth line because Barclay Goodrow right now is playing with Panarin and Mika. So Gauthier just kind of the odd man out right now. You hope eventually he gets another chance, but, the Rangers are rolling and would not be stunned to see them roll with the same lineup against the Penguins on Tuesday. And as far as a defenseman, Ben Harper, he's back in there, and Libor Hájek is a healthy scratch once again. And Again, I'm fine with this. Harper's done okay. And, Hayek had his chances. Zach Jones had his chances. Now they're giving Ben Harper a little bit of a chance. Bit of a revolving door as far as the sixth defenseman is concerned. But Harper's big. He is physical. And he got into one of the post-whistle skirmishes in this game. Somebody kind of hit Trocheck late on a play stoppage in front of the Ranger net. And Harper stepped right in there and shoved him and got in his face. And, I don't know. I don't know without looking this up, because I'm still kind of learning a lot about Ben Harper, like I'm sure a lot of you are as well. It's not exactly a household name. I'd be lying if I said I've watched hours and hours of Ben Harper tape, because I have not. But, if for no other reason, just the fact that this guy is as big as a tree, he's not the kind of guy that I would want to fight. And I'm not encouraging, senseless violence and just fighting every single night, but I have to believe that if it really hit the fan and there was really just a nasty game, I would have to believe that Ben Harper, based on his stature alone, is not somebody who would be afraid to drop the gloves. Just kind of my gut instinct on that one. But yeah, Harper's been all right so far, and we'll see. The Rangers might still look to upgrade that spot, at or near the trade deadline, bring in, a veteran, a rental, whatever it might be. But, through a couple of games here, Harper's done okay for himself, at least, which is good. And the other thing I want to talk about here, the Blackhawks right now, they're in the middle of a pretty big, soon-to-be tear-down rebuild. I don't know if you can really call it a tear-down rebuild if Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews are still there, and we'll see what happens with the two of them at the trade deadline. Maybe Patrick Kane ends up being a member of the New York Rangers. We'll see what happens there. But the bottom line is, the Blackhawks, they're going to take the long road to getting back to contention there. Right now, the roster is just not really anything good. I don't really know how else to say it, but it just kind of reminded me of the Ranger rebuild. But the difference between those two teams, yes, the Rangers, they kind of went full-fledged tear-down rebuild for a couple of years there, and they traded away all these players that we love, and, it hurts a little bit, but you also understand why they're doing it. You kind of see both sides of it. The difference, though, is that the Rangers, when they went into the rebuild, it was never this bad. The Blackhawks are just an awful team. They've won fewer than a quarter of their games so far this season, and a lot of their losses, they just get run off the ice like they did in this game tonight. And that's what's even crazier about this to me. I don't think that the Blackhawks were really lacking in effort in this game. They actually outshot the Rangers, which is not the end-all, be-all, but bottom line, a team that lost 7-1 actually outshot the opposition. I thought they were skating pretty well. It's just there's nothing there. You've got an aging Toews and a declining Toews, an aging Kane and at least a somewhat declining Kane. I think you'd probably have to say that at this point. Not that he can't help a contending team, because I certainly think he still could. But you've got that, and then otherwise, it's a bunch of castaways and minor leaguers and just not a good team. But I think we can all appreciate the fact right now, to bring it back to the Rangers, just a very simple fact that it just never got this bad. Because, yes, the Rangers went through the rebuild, but they were never one of, the worst 2 or 3 teams in the league. It never was that bad. And in most seasons, even during the rebuild, you could maybe sort of kind of talk yourself into the idea that, well, hey, maybe the Rangers, I know they're rebuilding, maybe they could, squeak their way into the playoffs, be one of the last 1 or 2 teams into the dance. It didn't happen, of course, until this past season when the rebuild was basically complete. But at least the Rangers, it was never this awful, and they still gave us some decent hockey even when they were rebuilding. They weren't getting run out of the arena night after night after night, because I can't even imagine what this is like as a Blackhawks fan. If Jack, he's the host of Locked On Blackhawks, this cannot be a lot of fun for him right now. So, yeah, again, I'm just appreciative of the fact that the Rangers never truly bottomed out and were never truly one of the absolute worst teams in the league. I think that's something not to be taken for granted. That's pretty much it. Again, it was just a pretty lopsided win in favor of the Rangers. They went to Chicago. They took care of business against a team that they should beat. 7 straight wins heading into now the Tuesday night clash in Pittsburgh against the Penguins. Definitely looking forward to that. I'm sure that will be a hostile environment. I would bet anything there will be some chippiness, some fireworks, whatever you want to call it. But these teams do not like each other. The fan bases do not like each other. And I think we're in for a heck of a hockey game on Tuesday night. Beyond that, though, let me just give a shout-out to Igor Shesterkin. I do have this at the end of my notes here. Stopped 29 of 30 shots. And again, if you see the final score, 7-1, I'm sure the Rangers cruised, which they kind of did. But you would think it's one of those games where the Blackhawks just kind of laid down and die. Igor probably had an easy night. No, Igor was making some really nice saves in this game. And as we talked about in a recent episode, he's right back into Vezina form and looking like one of the absolute best goalies in this league. So that's very nice to see as well. So, again, just 2 more games left before the holiday break here at Pittsburgh Tuesday, home against the Islanders on Thursday. Both games start at 7, and I think we're going to see Igor Shesterkin for both of those games. Again, just might as well make him the workhorse. You've got 2 games left against 2 rivals, and then you've got a nice holiday break there. The Rangers are off for almost a week, so there's no reason really not to go with Igor here. And then you can start him the first couple of games out of the break as well, which will be nice because Igor Shesterkin is, of course, the reigning Vezina winner, and like I said, one of the absolute best goalies on the planet, if not the best. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com, and definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, at @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, it's at @LO_NY_Rangers, and definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time. Thanks for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Sports Today. Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get the analysis and opinions before anyone else with our local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today podcasts, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.